And then I believe that Sarah has something to talk to us about.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
This is Sarah Carnes-Wentz, your attorney. So I wanted to get on here real quick to kind of discuss a little bit that obviously we're all under a state of emergency. The mayor declared that last week. While the specifics are to social distance ourselves, we still have to conduct business as usual, hence our telephonic meeting today. Obviously, the Missouri Sunshine Law, Open Meetings Act allow for these types of meetings held by telephone, which is great for our purposes today. Unfortunately, our rules of procedure say that we either have to be physically present or have to do video conferencing, which is just not feasible at this time. So what we need to do to have this meeting right now as a telephonic meeting is to have a motion to suspend our rules of procedure, specifically Article 2, paragraphs 5 and 6. So I'd like to get a motion and a roll call vote done before we move further.
Larry Porter
Mark,
here. I make the
Very
Larry
good.
Porter.
Okay. Who wants to second the motion?
Joe Zach.
Joe Zach seconded. Would you read the motion again before we vote?
The motion is to suspend the rules of procedure, specifically Article 2, paragraphs 5 and 6.
Okay. Is there any discussion about this or questions? Hearing none, then let's vote. All in favor by roll call will say aye, or say your name.
Larry Porter.
Christina, yeah, there you
Yes.
go. Larry.
Jack Looney.
Yes.
Garland Land.
Yes.
Joe Zach.
Yes.
Mark McDonald.
Yes.
Jerry Atkins.
Yes. And special thanks to Christina and to Steve for putting all this together. And Sarah, thanks for your help with that.
Yeah, and Jerry, I have a couple of ground rules, if you don't mind me saying that.
Go ahead.
Now.
Yeah, step right in.
We got a couple of rules so we can make this meeting run as efficiently as possible. As you know, Chairperson Atkins is running the meeting, so please address him if you'd like to speak. Please state your name before you speak so we know who is speaking, so Christina can accurately reflect our discussion in the minutes. Keep your questions to the end of each discussion section so we can move on each presentation so it's as coherent as possible for everyone who's listening. And at the end, Chairperson Atkins will call upon the members for any questions. If you could keep your phones muted as much as possible so any background noise, we won't hear that. And if you have any questions now is the time before we move on.
Okay, are there any questions with regard to the procedure? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed. First order of discussion is the emergency status of the utilities. And Lisa Phelps, who's acting assistant city manager, will give us that report.
Hi, members of the board. You can hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Basically, all of the utilities are altering schedules of all of our divisions, trying to maintain business as usual as much as possible and still do all of our primary functions. Our service levels may slow specifically for us in WPC. One example is we're only having half of our crews in at any given time to try and limit their exposure to each other and just having such big groups together. So while we are still out and cleaning sewers and televising lines, we are not doing it at the same rate that we normally would. I think that's pretty consistent across the utilities. Power and Light is looking at staggering their shifts. So they're changing the times when most people would congregate, the beginning of the day, the end of the day, and lunch and things like that. Water is looking at some alternatives at the plant and alternating shifts with their people out working on their system. Our plant has changed also. They're basically half of them are in instead of all of them at the same time, and they're rotating on a weekly or week basis. Do you have any specific
Okay.
questions?
Yeah. Any questions for
Porter.
Lisa? Yeah. Go ahead, Larry.
Lisa, are we shutting off for delinquency or anything like that?
No, we've suspended shutoffs for during the state of emergency.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's covered under the mayor's declaration, isn't it?
I believe so.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move along. Thanks so very much, Lisa. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Okay, and our next report is from Jim Nail, IPL proposed rates schedule. And good luck, Jim, on this.
Mr. Chair, this is Christina. Would you
Yes.
mind, or I can, read the list of the staff that is present here in case they need to be addressed?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, today we have with us Adam Norris, Assistant City Manager, Lisa Phelps, Acting Assistant City Manager, Sarah Carnes, Limp, City Councilor, Steve Wagner, City 7, Jim Nail, IPL Acting General Manager, Robert Stillwell, IPL Acting Finance Manager, and Dan Montgomery, Water Director.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Okay, we're back to you then, Jim. You want to give your report?
Hi, Chairman Atkins, this is Jim Nail. The rates that we presented to you at the last PUAB meeting have been formalized in the document that you were sent, which is the one we presented to council last week. It tabulates all of the new rates. They're grouped together with the existing rates that are related to that one. You'll see the term frozen. I think there was some confusion among some parties, but frozen refers to those grandfathered existing rates, which will remain in effect going forward. But all of those follow the new rate that's related to those that they were all combined into. Probably the one section that was of question was the municipal rate, because there were a lot of questions on that. What was presented to the council Friday increased that from the previous number given was 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Based on a number of inputs and discussion, we went back and recalculated that using the same rates that a large industrial user on a special interruptible contract would receive, and that came out to an equivalent 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's what we have listed for the municipal rate, which you'll see that on page 43 of 78. That also lists a customer charge of $90 per month for traffic signals. I did make an incorrect statement Friday. I said that included all charges for traffic signals. Robert reminded me that that's not correct. We do bill the city for the electric usage on the traffic signals. The $90 charge accounts for the fact that our communication group actually does all the maintenance and operation of those. So that's why the higher charge for the traffic signals. But they do also get the 8 cents per kilowatt hour, and it is metered usage.
And that's on page 43?
That's on page 43, correct.
All right. Anyone have questions to this point? Okay, hearing none, you can go ahead, Jim.
The rest of or after we finish the individual rates, one of the ones you hadn't seen previously, page 45 of 78, is private lighting. Those are not metered, so they are a charge that is calculated based on the average electricity for each type of light and the hours of darkness versus daylight across the year. So there are specific monthly charges there for private lighting. You'll find that on page 45 and 46.
So those are metered separately?
Those are the lighting is not metered, so that's why it's a specific charge. But it's based on a calculation that was done on how much whether it's the luminaire, the sodium vapor, the high pressure, the LED, we took what each of those uses per hour when it's on, averaged that across the year for how many hours of darkness there are, and that's where that calculation comes up with those monthly charges.
Okay. Any questions about that on page 45?
Larry Porter,
Go ahead, Larry.
does that take into consideration daylight savings time, Jim?
Yes, Larry, it does. It's just the average, the number of hours of light and dark across the year.
Okay. I didn't want to see if it confused it or something, or, had anything to do with it. That's all I got.
Okay. Any other questions to Jim about page 45? Okay, and we skipped over 43. Does anybody have questions about 43? That's the municipal rate.
Yes. Clooney?
So, Jack, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
My issue is broader than just the municipal, but I'll use the municipal as an example. But although the cost of service is a pretty minor part of a monthly billing, it doesn't. I guess I'm asking the question. We had a study on rates in 5 years ago, which showed that the cost of service costs needed to be increased. They haven't declined, I would imagine, in 5 years. I would suggest they increased. And let me further state that residential is our largest consumer of electricity. And theirs is at 10, and that's an average. Can be averaged out to a home like each of us live in. The equipment that the Power and Light Department installs to provide service to those homes usually services 4 to 6 customers. So the investment made in a single phase line to provide service to residential is probably adequately covered by the service charge, and that's a guess on my behalf. However, when we see the same rate for the municipal building, that compares with any large business that you do business with out there, any grocery store, any drugstore, any of the major stores, and then the sole benefactor of the 3-phase installation into that site. It would be much more than the investment for residential. So something's out of skew there. And I suggest that if it is, we don't ask the ratepayers to absorb electrical service charges that are inappropriately theirs. And I'll stop for the moment.
The
Hey,
municipal
Jim or Robert?
account- Jim, the municipal accounts, there were, I think, 176 different accounts altogether, and many of them were on residential rates. And then there were some that were on commercial, some were on large user. It varied across the board. But we chose the $10 charge. Those will still be assessed per account. So it's not just $10 that the city's paying, but it's $10 on all of those individual accounts. Plus,
I understand. A couple of those accounts would be City Hall, the police building, and would be totally inappropriate.
All I can tell you is we took $10 to apply across the board instead of having multiple or having different rates for different buildings.
I'm suggesting that wasn't a good decision.
I understand.
Thank you.
Mr.
Okay,
Atkins,
other comments on 43, page 43?
Mark McDonald.
Go ahead, Mark.
I had several comments. First of all, I'd like to make a comment that I have a concern with the most recent changes in the schedule since the presentation to the PUAB. The municipal rate has gone from 5 cents to 8 cents. And I don't know if that's based on any science or what actually made that happen, which I think is much more appropriate. The other thing is the effective rate for the municipal rate has changed from October 1st, 2020 to July 1st, 2020. And I'm still in awe in how that changed. Your first document that you handed out to the people at the rate committee session indicated that all the rates would go into place on October 1st, 2020.
I can answer that.
Okay.
At the request of the city manager, because all the departments are still finalizing their budgets for the new fiscal year. We asked for October 1st so that we had plenty of time to test and run parallels and make sure that we weren't going to run into the same problems we did when we implemented the new billing system. So we gave ourselves plenty of cushion with that October 1st. But because all the departments are trying to finalize their budgets and make sure that they've got everything lined up, the city manager asked if we would consider July 1st just for the municipal rates. And that's what we presented to the city council on Friday. I mean, to the rates study commission.
I was there, Jim, and I heard nothing about the municipal rate being effective earlier than any of the other rates. And it's just my hope that my comments that I make will go to the city council members so that they know that this is pretty, from my point of view, it's pretty much a rush job. And I'm not blaming you or anyone at IPL or anyone else. It's just a comment. We've been working on it for, I think, over a year now. We paid big money for this rate case, and now it's getting slammed down our throats in a last minute ditch effort. And I do understand that. Go ahead.
You also asked about where the 8 cents came from. We did provide an explanation on that. We took.
Oh, I understand.
Total, well, you just said you weren't sure if it came from or what science was used to develop it. So I was going to address that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
We took all the usage across all the municipal accounts, totaled that up, and then we applied what the charges would be using the special interruptible contract rate, both the demand charge that they would have been assigned plus the usage charge. We took the total dollars divided by the total amount of power used, and that came up to an equivalent rate of 8 cents.
Okay.
That's where the 8 cents came from.
And let me follow up with a question on that, Jim. Well, that's one of my other comments. We're using the special contract interruptible service. I don't know. Do we plan on interrupting the service to any one of these 176 accounts that you're using?
We could if necessary. The decision that we were given was that we had to treat the city the same as another large user that they would have available to them. Our large user accounts do have the option of that special contract interruptible rate if they choose. So since it is an available rate to those customers, we're not treating the city any different. We're not creating a special rate for the city. We're giving the city the advantage of the same thing we would do an equivalent user.
Okay. I don't agree with that at all. I think in the history of IPL since 1901, I would have a hard time believing that we've ever interrupted service to any city facility. I could be wrong, but like I said, I want my comments that I gleaned from going through your rate cases and all that stuff. I just want the city council to know before they vote on this, on the concerns, and maybe change them before it becomes an official document. The next thing I have is I truly appreciate the fact that the proposed rate schedule acknowledges the Bondurant decision. And I also appreciate the confirmation or the opinion letter from Sarah Carnes-Limp, Assistant City Councilor. She validated the city's decision to create a municipal rate. I totally understand. I also understand on item 8, page 13 of the Bondurant decisions, for determining the amount of benefit to the city, it makes it possible to utilize that rate. I have no problem with that at all. But like I mentioned earlier, I don't think the special contract interruptible service is the right rate for that. And I think the more appropriate rate would have been the large channel service rate. The next thing that I'd like to see happen is that at this municipal rate, which is a lower rate than what they were paying previously, I think it's time that the city took back over the electricity that goes to streetlights. In fact, the Bondurant decision under findings of facts, item 5, the Power and Light provided electric power to the city and various city departments without charge. All such except power for streetlights and traffic signals is metered. The power usage for the streetlights and traffic signal is determined by various formulas. The revenue attributed to the power provided to the city is determined in accord with the rates for large industrial customers of the Power and Light Department. And I truly believe, using your logic and the decisions that have come down from your legal team, and what is the other one? It came down from Zach Walker, our city manager. I think it's only appropriate that streetlight electricity be included in our billing. And just like Jack, I have the same concern about the rationale for the $10 customer charge. I am comforted to know what you mentioned earlier, Jim, about all the different facilities. 176 accounts will be charged a $10 service fee, and I didn't know that before. So that's all I have on the rate side. Thank you.
This is Garland. I have
Mr. Garland, go ahead.
a couple of
Go ahead,
questions.
Garland.
Apparently, this is going to be a cost of about $300,000 to IPL, and I was just wondering what how are you going to budget this cost to IPR?
Hey, Garland, are you referring to page 43 still?
I'm referring to the cost of the cost for the municipal cost.
Carlton, this is Jim. What I can tell you is we've done an estimate of what our revenues are going to be, and we are taking steps to make sure that our budget request falls under that amount.
So I'm getting a lot of feedback. It appears that we're treating the city so that we can take these 143 separate entities and merge them together and give a cost savings to the city. So can other businesses do the same thing? So if, for example, banks that have multiple locations, can they put all their banks together and have a new cost structure? Or can several churches go together and have a new cost structure? Are we dealing with the city in a special way that we're not allowing other businesses to operate in a similar fashion?
Currently, we don't allow people to aggregate accounts.
Why are we allowing the city to do so?
This is Robert Stillwell.
That was the judgment of our council.
This is Robert Stillwell, real quick. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Robert. Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
We aggregated the usage overall to develop the municipal rate. We are not aggregating their accounts on a monthly basis. They will each be billed on an account basis.
I'm sure you understand, Robert, but I don't understand that.
Well, we are not going to add all of the meters together for all these accounts and send out one single bill. There will be multiple, the 167 individual bills that will be provided to the city. So we have the additional $10 charge or the $90 charge, depending on if it's a traffic signal and all that. We are not grouping their accounts together and putting them on a special rate or something like that. What we did is we developed an estimate as if the city were a single unit to come up with the municipal rate.
Yeah, I understand that. But you could take the same logic for a group of churches or a group of banks, and then they would have a special rate.
I guess you could have us do that.
Why are we
This
treating
Robert again.
the city and giving them preferential treatment that we are not giving to other entities?
What I can tell you is that in order to come up with a municipal rate that was in the spirit of the Bondurant decision, this was done with the advice of our council.
Well, you understand my concern.
I do understand.
That we're not treating everybody in the same way. It's not equitable.
Okay, anything further, Garland?
Not at this moment.
Mr. Chairman, Jack Looney.
Yes, go ahead, Jack.
After reading literally hundreds of letters from both the city and the Power and Light Department through the last 40 years, there are certain references that are kind of like in-house words, but not words that others understand. So might not expect our attorneys to understand some of it, or someone like that that's, you know, generally working on other things. But it says this in this proposed SCIS, service will be supplied from the utility's three-phase 200-volt system. None of the city's facilities qualify there.
Is that a question to somebody?
Well, that's a statement of fact.
Okay. Anything else you want to add to that, Jack?
Oh, no, not at the moment.
Okay, great. All right. Anybody else want to respond to page 43? Okay, hearing none, let's move ahead. Jim, do you want to further your report?
All right, we were at page 9 is another one that you have not seen before. That is the electric vehicle charging stations, and those are at a flat fee of 20 cents per kilowatt hour.
Who's speaking?
This is Jim.
Jim, okay. And what page again?
That was page 49, which is the electric
49,
vehicle
okay.
charge rate. That's one that you haven't seen.
Okay.
And it's, like I said, it's a flat fee of 20 cents per kilowatt hour for using those charging stations.
Okay. Any questions about that?
Mr. Chairman, Mark
Yes.
McDonald.
Yep.
Jim, how did we arrive at 20 cents per kilowatt? I don't know what's right and what's wrong.
When the decision was made to install charging stations for the citizens to use, the team that implemented that came up with the 20 cents. I don't know what the actual basis was. That's how the machines were set up.
This is Robert.
Go ahead.
The
Robert.
20 cents was developed based upon using what basically our competitors, what Evergy and all that were charging at the time, and that's what they're charging. So that's where that was developed. We have very little usage that is actually built out on these, and what we did is we matched what the Evergy policy was doing.
Robert, just this is Jerry. Any question? What would be the average fill up? Let's just say that one of our cars went over there and it was empty of energy per kilowatt hour. How much would it cost to fill that up? Just a guess.
I would have to get back to you on that, but I believe that they're charging it about 7 kilowatts an hour, or maybe not even that high. I believe that the average fill up is in the range of around I want to say $2, $3 in that range, but I could get back to you on that. I don't have those numbers handy.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay. Anybody else on page 49?
Mr. Chairman, Mark McDonald again.
Yes. Go ahead.
My concern really isn't about the amount. My concern I keep bringing up is it's not based on any scientific or any analytical work whatsoever. It's using another company's rate and going with it. Shouldn't it be based off our cost of service or what it costs us to have that the filling station there and any other costs associated, and then that derived the rate from? Robert, that was to you.
I figured it was me. This is Robert again. When we installed it, we have so little usage that the total revenue that we receive based upon the amount of use, because there's not very much usage on these at this time, was less than $15,000 a year. And for us to do a full cost of service and all that stuff, we went with the simplest and quickest way to install something. Now, when we do our next, and this rate was established prior to, when we do our next rate study, whenever that is, we'll bring that in as a cost of service and see, okay, how much they are. But the challenge comes with what we actually receive, or how much they're actually used, because that depends on the usage level. At this time, you know, a 20 cent is probably good if you have a fairly high usage level of those facilities, but right now they're not being utilized at a high volume at this time. Maybe in the future when we have more cars.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Robert, I interrupted you and I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying, you know, once we get more electric cars and the facilities are used more, then we'll have a better understanding of what their true usage is going to be. We had to estimate what we think they could be.
The only reason I said that is that I don't personally have an electric car, and I don't know that I will for a long time. But I would think that'd be a real incentive to get people to get on board with using more electricity for the electric vehicles by having a lower rate than Evergy. And I guess that's my only point. The other thing I'd like to ask is, this is a Jack Looney. Jack, what the heck did you mean about the internal shorthand phrases? Is that something
Say that again?
you know about?
Say it again.
Well, can you further explain what you were talking about the I'm at a loss.
I don't recall even stating it, so I can't defend it.
We did.
Yeah, you did, Jack.
Okay. And it'll take me a minute to figure out where it came from.
Is about the memos and letters that went back and forth between the city and the IPL over 40 years.
Oh, okay. And what was wrong with that?
Nothing was wrong with that. What are you talking about? Is there something
Talking
that the board
about,
should know
thank you,
about?
that's up for me. Terms, 13,200 volt distribution system. That means from our primary system. It does not mean through a transformer bank. It means a single point of disconnect, which allows these people to qualify. One of the qualifying points for this SCIS, 13,200 volt system. It doesn't say 12208, doesn't say 240 volt. Those are terms that we industrial people understand, and that's the way this is written.
So let me ask for clarification one more time. Are you saying that a lot of our facility, or several of our facilities, wouldn't even be able to be a part of this interruptible service?
The way it's written, that's correct.
Jim, what do you think about that?
Well, and again, the task we were given was to come up with a single municipal rate that we could give out to all the divisions, departments, so they could estimate what their utility bills would be. What we did was base that on the total usage and then came up with the equivalent rate.
Did you do that same calculation with the, just for grins, what would it have been like for large industrial or large general services rate?
I'll have to check with Robert. I don't know if we did the calculation at the non-contract.
I'm just trying to get it so that when we present this rate, that it's something that we can stand behind Because we have a lot of users out there that are not going to like that somebody gets a special rate and we don't.
Well, and again, the special contract interruptible rate is a rate that's available to our large accounts if they choose to take that risk. So it is an available rate. That's how we that's why we use that one to treat the city in the same manner.
Well, Jim, based on
Hey,
what
this is Jerry. Hang on, Mark, just a second. Jack, would you be interested in inserting some additional language along those lines? Would that help clarify things for you?
I don't need any clarification. I can read and I see what it says.
Yeah, but you said other people wouldn't understand, and I
Well,
just
I wouldn't
wonder if you
expect
could.
maybe some people sitting in our gallery on a normal meeting might not understand 13,200 from 4160, what that means.
Okay, back to
Mr.
you.
Chairman, Mark McDonald, one
yes.
more time.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I think Jack earlier commented that even if we gave this rate to all the 176 accounts or whatever that number has been moving around a lot, they wouldn't even be available. They wouldn't. The interruptibility is not going to be available for all those accounts. Maybe I'm just hearing it wrong. I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
that's right. It's not a proper application to this rate structure. Write another one if you want to, but for this one, the intent is there has to be a brownout or some reason to reduce electricity. There are people that get special rates. You can disconnect me in those circumstances. Yes, we would not go around for 143. Only maybe 10 of them are reasonable disconnect.
This is Garland. I know that we're trying to create simplicity for the 143, but I'm wondering if maybe if we ought to consider maybe 3 or 4 municipal rates that are more appropriate for the types of municipal jurisdictions that we have, that don't lead us into the problem that we're just talking about.
It's actually,
this is Jerry. Garland, when we started out, we were trying to reduce the number of rates, and a lot of time and energy has gone into getting the number down from 27 to, I think, 12 now.
I understand.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jack Looney again.
Go ahead, Jack.
I just say this, I'm not making a motion, I say this with reluctance, but I would like to see us being able to look at calculations, determine the cost of service, and how staff come up with those. But given the virus, I don't think we all want to meet again to discuss it, which means that if a motion was given and passed, we probably have to do it electronically. That's my comment. I'm reluctant to make the motion.
Okay. Well, we'll take that under consideration then, see what we can do.
Okay.
Who else wants to comment? Anybody's turn.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
This is
Yes,
Mark.
go ahead.
Are
Yes.
we just, I'd like to see a kind of like what Jack is talking about. Take a look at all the frozen and the new rates and see how many actual rates we're actually reducing. When you start adding up all of the frozen rates plus the new rates, aren't we actually increasing the number of rates?
This is Jim. I can answer that.
Okay. Thank you, bud.
You are correct. Initially, what you're seeing is a list of new rates added to what we had. That's because of the fact, that's because we asked for everyone's approval to go with the grandfathered position for all the existing rates. Eventually, as we churn through new accounts and people drop off of the frozen rates, we'll get a higher and higher percentage will be in just this list of the new rates that are proposed. The next time we do a rate study, I know the part of the council's resolution in the past was a 5-year moratorium on rate changes. At the time we do another rate study, it may be time to consolidate everything. That will have to be determined then. This was the best solution we could come up with to move forward to create the simplified rate structure, but retain the 6% savings for those existing customers.
Okay. I think we're on the same page. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, anybody else on any other page?
Larry Porter.
Go ahead, Larry.
I think everybody's read these pages, and we've had long discussions on it now. I didn't comment on a lot of the stuff because there's some of it I don't understand, some of it I do understand. But we have an action item of requesting a motion in support of this proposal on the rate schedule. Now, to me, this is a work in progress, and I think that it's something that we'll be working on for probably the next year. However, they want to approve this at this time to send to the city council. So I guess I'll make the motion that we support it at this time, and there'll be questions later on and possible changes later on. And I make that motion at this time.
Okay, do we have a second to the motion?
This is Joe Zach. I would like to second that motion.
Okay, and as I understand the motion, Larry, it was written out in our minutes, or the board calling for today's meeting. It's a request for IPL's proposed rate schedule to be moved forward to the city council for approval.
That's correct.
Is that it, Larry? Yeah, okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's been made and seconded. Is there any question or comment?
Yes, I have. This is Garland. I have a question.
Okay.
Back in 2018, and maybe it has been changed now, I understand that there was the Heritage House apartments were considered large general service, and that there was a bank on the square that was considered a let's see, where was it? Something that was more than a commercial. Could somebody address that if that has been corrected now?
Yeah, I didn't get all of that. Any Jim or Robert, did you understand what he was talking about?
I didn't quite understand it. If he could say it again, that would be appreciative.
Okay, Garland, will you go again?
Sure. In 2008,
Jim, I understood the question. There's an apartment complex and a bank that he believes were in categories that otherwise they might, a similar business might not be in. We will have to check with our billing and see what they are listed under. I don't have that here with me.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with the motion.
Yeah, it goes back to some previous things. Is there anything further on this motion? Okay, with
I guess-
the,
Looney here.
Pardon?
Jack Looney.
Jack? Yeah.
Yes. I guess I'm just skeptical that that we will ever visit this again. That's a concern I have. I don't think you should legalize bad or investigative material. We're shooting in the dark on some of this, not having background on some of these calculations. That's all.
Well, this is Jerry. As I understand it, we're advisory anyway, and by moving it on to the council, they still have the right to question any of it that they want to change or don't understand or any other thing that they want to do, because they set policy and we simply advise them.
Yes, that's true.
Any other? Okay. Anything else on this particular question? Okay, hearing none. Christina, will you call the roll, please?
Larry Porter,
Yes.
Jack Looney,
No.
Garland Land,
No.
Joe Zack,
Yes.
Mark McDonald,
Yes.
Atkins,
Yes. Looks like 4 yeses and 2 nos. Christina?
that's correct.
Okay. The motion passed. So this will be sent up to the city council with some of the notes that we've made and some of the thoughts. And the board members, of course, have all the right in the world to write city council or speak before the city council regarding any part of this or all of it. So let's move on then to board member comments. Let's start, Larry, or any board member comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. Joe?
No, thank you.
Hey, Mark?
Yes, I have a few.
All
First
right, go
comment.
ahead.
Bottom line, with this process, just like Jack, I think also indicated, I think we've lost a lot of our trust with our ratepayers, and it all stopped with all the starts and stops of this process, and not following the
Hey,
charter.
just a second, Mark, just a second. Mark, just a second. Could anybody either put their hand over the microphone or try to mute your phone? We're getting so much overlapping feedback that it's very hard to hear. So either put your hand over your microphone on your phone or mute it, please. Okay, let's try again, Mark.
Okay, that is better. Thank you.
It is much
Jerry.
better.
Yeah.
You bet.
Bottom line, I think we've lost a lot of trust and faith from our ratepayers with all the starts and stops during this process, and with documents that's mysteriously changing at a whim. I totally agree with Jerry that we are an advisory. We do not want, I don't personally want to get in the way with the city putting together a budget. But at the same time, it's my hope they will take in consideration the comments that we've made about some of the, I'll just say it as it is, shenanigans that have gone on during this rate process. And I'm not blaming anyone in particular. It's just an embarrassment to our city. Second, I'd like to give you advance notice that at the next meeting, I plan on making a motion to request an electrical engineering review of the condition of our 6 combustion turbines. I'm specifically asking for an expert to look at the equipment and not a statement from a consultant with a review of documents and interviews from IPL personnel. And I think that's what we got in the past. Third, I'm going to be making another motion that I plan on following our city charter and the Bondurant decision, conclusion of law, item 2, pages 11 and 12, to determine a means of reducing our unsecured reserves to the benefit of all of our ratepayers. And finally, I haven't been able to address it because I'm not a member of any of the committee meetings that I've been to. But twice now, we've had assistant city managers concerning the use of excess unrestricted reserves. I cannot find anywhere in the city charter or the Bondurant decision that would allow for the saving of excess reserves for future spending projects. That's why there's a capital budgeting project, and that's something that also needs to be reviewed. The 2 guiding documents are very clear how excess funds should be handled. Those funds are for the benefit of the ratepayers, not for the city or any utility. That's all I have.
Okay. Jack, anything further?
No, sir.
Okay. Garland, anything further in comments?
No.
Okay. I have some comments, a couple of them. First of all, I want to thank the board members for all the time and consideration you've put in on this rate study, as well as other matters before the committee and the board. And our staff, I know that they've put in hours and hours and sometimes worry about all of this, and they've come to quite a document, 79 pages long or so, that has attempted to answer all the questions. And then I just want to say for today, I really appreciate everybody and staff and board members. These are special situations. It's a special time in our history, and we have gotten through it, and I appreciate all the consideration that you've allowed us all and me. So with that, I'm going to conclude. So unless there's anything else right now from anyone, then I'm going to ask for an adjournment. Okay, hearing none, the
I'll make a motion to
meeting of the
adjourn.
Okay. Heard the
Mr.
motion
Chairman?
to adjourn. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's Mark McDonald. I make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I got that. So there is a motion to adjourn, and in fact, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.